The pads came on for the first time at Baltimore Ravens training camp on Monday, and Mike Green absolutely bullied the Ravens offense. We'll talk about that. Mark Andrews turning back the clock and dominating, plus some tempers flaring, all that and more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here on this Tuesday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. For 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday, bringing you that daily Ravens coverage and analysis. We also have shows on the weekend when there are headlines to talk about. We also go live after every single Ravens game and every single piece of Ravens big news. Plus, we have the Locked On Ravens Squad show with myself, Sam Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Qadri Ismail, which is live every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I had a great squad show last night. Thanks out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and for somewhere in the middle, thank you as well for tuning in. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Pads came on Monday, first day of pads for the Ravens. That's always an exciting milestone because, again, there's still stuff you can tell without the pads being on, but the pads up the level of physicality. I think they can paint you a better picture of what you have. And man, I think we saw a lot of guys step up in the moment with pads on. So we'll dive into all training camp updates as we do here on Locked On Ravens. Really pumped to dive into it because there are a couple of big names that we're going to talk about, including one that I think everybody is very excited about, his contributions potentially to this Ravens team on the football field this year. We'll get into some injury concerns, or if there are injury concerns. John Harbaugh gave some updates, including Jaire Alexander missing practice on Monday. We'll get into if there should be any concerns there, plus some other injury news and updates as we have it right now. We'll talk about who looked good and who didn't at Monday's camp practice, and we'll also dive a little bit into the latest Ravens storyline. So let's get into it now. Mike Green is the name of the day here for the Baltimore Ravens. The pads came on and Mike Green exploded onto the scene. Obviously, when you talk about the offensive line, the defensive line, the trenches, as people call it, it can be tough to really gauge what you have in non-padded settings because that level of physicality is not allowed. And obviously, the trenches are the most physical part of football, right? Getting up in there, trying to either shed a block or block a guy. You know, you need to be physical in order to do that. So Mike Green just burst onto the scene for Baltimore on Monday, which I think was music to everybody's ears. These updates coming from Justin Robertson and Ryan Mink over at BaltimoreRavens.com. Apparently, it didn't really take long to notice Mike Green in his first padded practice. Green's motor and physicality were hard to ignore. He had what likely would have been a sack on Cooper Rush and consistently put pressure on the quarterbacks. Beyond just his work as a pass rusher, Green showed physicality in the run game as well. Cordell Woodland over at 105.7, he posted a clip from out at Owings Mills on Monday of Mike Green absolutely bowling over a tight end, you know, one of the guys who's competing for, if there is a fourth tight end spot, competing for a fourth tight end spot. Wasn't one of the big three of Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, or Charlie Kolar, but regardless, Mike Green, you can see he's an absolute beast. You can tell from the tape that he put on film, you know, whether it was big games against Ohio State or against the smaller schools. We know the stats are there. He's a 3-down player. I am pumped for Mike Green. And actually, Qadri Ismail, former Ravens receiver and Super Bowl champion, he was out at Owings Mills on Monday, taken in training camp. And on the squad show, Locked On Ravens squad show, he talked about how Mike Green looked and had some pretty hefty and lofty comparisons for Mike Green, which I think a lot of people will be very happy to hear. So I'm going to play the clip and then we'll react to what Q had to say.
Can I just say Mike Green, someone, KO, won't mention the full name, speed bumped over him? That dude.
Mike Green?
Oh.
Mike Green's a beast. Yeah.
But I mean, He was a beast without pads. Today, homeboy was coming off that edge and was fast. Like, gone, backfield. Like Von Miller meets, I don't know, give me somebody back in my day. Derrick Thomas, may he rest in peace. Wow. He kind of got that Derrick Thomas body from Kansas City, the great Kansas City Chiefs player. Go Google him, YouTube him. When y'all done with our show, y'all go Google or YouTube Derrick Thomas. That dude reminds me so much of DT and just coming off that edge, like just wow. He got who was KO? Tell us who was the DN that we had signed late in free agency because of the facts.
Elvis Dumerville.
Yep. Oh, he got some Elvis Dumerville. Elvis Dumerville is the modern day Derrick Thomas. Just that size, undersized look, but just like ferocious off the edge. That's Mike Green.
I wish Q's Wi-Fi didn't cut out or this picture didn't cut out when it was going all the whoop-bam for how Mike Green looked at practice to him. And the squad show is a lot of fun. Be sure you check it out again Mondays and Thursdays. I'll play another clip from it in a couple of minutes on another player we're going to talk about. But, this is the pass rusher, I think, that could really turn the tides for Baltimore in terms of having that guy, the dude, the guy. Because I've talked about it a ton. Every team in the AFC North has that. I know the Bengals and Dre Hendrickson, that's really weird right now, but the Bengals and Hendrickson, the Steelers and TJ Watt, and the Browns and Myles Garrett. Mike Green truly has that like all-world potential with how he can bring the physicality as a run defender, and he has speed to power. He has an array of pass rushing moves. He knows how to get in the backfield, be a disruptor, and the fact that he was balling out the way that he did at practice on Monday with the pads coming on and him truly being able to unleash a little bit more, it feels like every day, it's huge. And we know the impact Baltimore had from their top 2 picks last season. I say it all the time. If they can get that again from Malaki Starks and Mike Green this year, they're in a really good spot. But it wasn't just the rookies that were still in the show during Monday's padded practice. Mark Andrews, he turned back the clock, or maybe, didn't really turn it back that far. He did have 11 touchdowns last season, but I know the Buffalo moments for him loom large for a lot of people. But Mark Andrews had a heck of a day at training camp on Monday. Andrews caught Lamar Jackson's first pass of the day for a big gain over the middle and powered through 2 defenders. And he got past Trenton Simpson during 7-on-7 work, sprinted 50 yards to the end zone after the play was over. And he's a guy that, seemed to really step up in that moment. We know the chemistry that Lamar has with Mark Andrews. We know how important Mark Andrews is to this offense, even with all the chatter surrounding Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews, even if he literally was just a decoy all season, even that provides value. Now, he's not going to be. I still think he's going to be very involved, but he's a player that the Ravens need, in my opinion, this season. And would they be okay if they had traded him? I think they would have been, right? I think Isaiah Likely is more than ready to take that step. But it is an absolute luxury to have the tight end room that they have, considering still how Mark Andrews is able to perform. And again, Q on the squad show, he gave us some insights on how he viewed Mark Andrews' day and how he viewed, I mentioned him sprinting to the end zone. Q was really impressed by that. Take a listen.
You also look at a guy in Mark Andrews who had some quiet early days, but mother of pearl. The pads came on, and actually Saturday's practice, he was getting the ball thrown his way, and he was sprinting to the end zone. You might think that is like no big deal. You always sprint to the end zone. No, you don't. When it comes to being a pro's pro, guys who really understand the game within the game when it comes to practice and all that, sprinting to the end zone is a mindset. You know it's hot. You know you're going to get fatigued. You know you're going to be tired. But that's where you forge your mental toughness. And if there's ever a person that needs to say, hey, the past is in the past, but I'm using it as fuel to move forward, it's Mark Andrews. 3 times today I saw where he caught a ball on the far side of the 50 and sprinted all the way into the end zone. One looked like it was 70. Looked like he took it to the hizzy from 70 out. So when you talk about that, I desire to redeem myself, but I'm also showing rather than just words. Look at Mark Andrews.
And we know how much last year's playoff loss impacted Mark Andrews. We know the aftermath of it. And we understand that Mark has a big chip on his shoulder. He's talked about it. He's talked about his excitement for that week 1 game against the Bills and his redemption arc, I guess I will call it. So the fact that, he is taking it seriously. He is going, I guess, if you want to call it the extra mile or the extra 50 yards in this case, to really put in the work and set an example and do that. Like, it's great. And again, regardless of how you feel about Mark, obviously based off of last season's events, or just how he's been in the playoffs, regardless, he is still a good player. He is still a help to this Ravens team. It is probably his last season in Baltimore. So, stacking days is important. And hopefully Mark, Q mentioned he had a few quiet days early on. Hopefully he can continue to stack these monster days, because I think that he can play a huge role, as he has, in Baltimore's success this season. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll dive into more general camp updates from Monday, including some tempers flaring. We got the first temper flare-up of Ravens training camp, so stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. And if you ever have wondered what your view will actually look like before you buy, the app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are absolutely no surprises. And with Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. There are no hidden fees. And if you're worried about what happens if plans change, the Gametime guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still racking out with you here on this Taco Tuesday. Ravens pads came on Monday, and now we get to see some practices with some amped up physicality. The Ravens will have their stadium practice on Sunday. We'll be live after that reacting. We'll also have a lot of exciting features and things that I'm planning to add on to the show this season, which are still in the works. Hopeful that everything will work out, but if all goes well, the first part of that will be revealed very, very soon. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. And of course, be sure you stay locked in on Locked On Ravens for all of your daily Ravens coverage. Let's get into some general training camp updates from Monday. We talked about Mark Andrews. We talked about Mike Green. Well, some of the other guys who starred or that made headlines during camp. Actually, let's start with maybe the not so fun part of it, which for Tyler Loop was that his perfect kicking streak in training camp came to an end. He went 5 of 8 on the day, his first misses of training camp. They were from 43, 39, and 45 yards. All of them were wide left. And we know Justin Tucker, he was pulling the ball too, all to one direction when he was kicking last season. So, it's again something that the Ravens are working with Loop on. He is still working through mechanics and probably things the coaching staff is trying to tweak in his game. I'm not going to overreact one way or the other, right? 10 for 10 he went on Friday. Hey, that's great. But there's a difference, and we talked about this on the squad show. There's a difference between doing it in training camp from those distances and doing it from a little further back in an AFC North road game down by 2 with 5 seconds left, right? You got to measure the guy's heart here. So, it's obviously baby steps. It's working towards getting into those moments and delivering in those moments. But, it's been a battle so far between Tyler Loop and John Hoyland. I still expect it to be, Tyler Loop's job to lose here. But, John Hoyland certainly has not been, he's not been too shabby himself. So, that's something that I think the competitiveness is honestly good for both rookie kickers. You also heard about the interior of the offensive line that had a good day. Now, Broderick Washington had pressure up the middle during 11-on-11, but the interior blockers apparently protected the quarterbacks well, which is, great news. Obviously, the guard positions are two of the positions on the roster that a lot of people, myself included, are feeling kind of uneasy about. Obviously, the starters projected there are Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees. And now that the pads are on, we will be able to hear and see a lot more from those guys and where they're at. But apparently a pretty good first padded impression for them during training camp. DeAndre Hopkins also had the catch of the day, and the Ravens posted the clip. If you have not seen it, you should go watch the clip. I have it on my social media. The Ravens have it on theirs. Everybody has it on their social media. DeAndre Hopkins, it was a one-handed catch. It was bobbled a little bit, but he was able to haul it in. And he actually got called for offensive pass interference because he was extending his off arm, and it caught Wiggins' face mask and kind of yanked it. And so that ended up nullifying the play. But, I'm counting it. I'm counting it. I'm saying, if it looks cool enough, we count it on Locked On Ravens. We established that rule with Q. So I guess we're counting the catch from DeAndre Hopkins, and Q vouched for DeAndre having that be a catch as well. Derrick Henry got in the action with a one-handed catch, corralling Lamar Jackson's screen pass. Chandler Martin and Lucas Scott had some big collisions. Apparently, Chandler Martin was all over the field making tackles. He had a good pass breakup, and Lucas Scott held his own blocking Mike Green. Mike Green dominated. He bullied the offense for the majority of the day, but Lucas Scott apparently held his own, and that allowed Keaton Mitchell to burst outside for a long run. Tez Walker had an impressive grab, apparently holding on to a pass over the middle that looks like it actually got tipped along the way. And then you have some other updates as well. These coming here from Nikhil Mehta, who does a great job covering the Ravens for Russell Street Report. He's out there at practice, and we've had him on the show a couple times. He said that there weren't a ton of highlight plays, but the blitzing was really successful by the defense. Mentioned some of the Mark Andrews plays. He beat Roquan Smith up the seam early in practice. That was one that a lot of people were talking about. He said Tez Walker had an active day, which was great. Isaiah Likely had a good rep against Marlon Humphrey. TJ Tampa actually trailed Tez Walker on a play, and he held onto the ball through TJ Tampa's punch. So, again, the defense focusing on forcing those turnovers. The offense, though, is not going to let him off the hook so easy. Nikhil also saying that it was actually a rough day for Lamar Jackson by Lamar Jackson's usual standards. He had a number of passes that were behind the intended target. Cooper Rush, who, I've made it very clear that based off everything we've heard and seen about Cooper Rush so far, I've been pretty underwhelmed. Cooper Rush was also inconsistent. He, the very end of practice, he was all over the place. And apparently Nikhil says here, everyone was adjusting to the pads, and maybe that actually has something to do with Tyler Loop. And John Harbaugh kind of talked about that. Maybe they should be practicing out there in pads every day, the kicker spot. So, that could be what, maybe it's a new standard for the Ravens. Who knows? Devin Leary, Nikhil said, made the best throw of the day with the deep back shoulder ball to Jamal Banks, and he got flagged for OPI. A lot of OPI on the day for the Ravens wide receivers. So, I think it's really cool that, a lot of guys are getting involved, and it seems to be different guys each day that are making names for themselves. And honestly, I think that's a good thing, right? Like, it's obviously cool to hear some of the guys who are dominating day in and day out and really are getting a feel for it. But I also think that as you look, and honestly, the tweet JJ Watt put out about a week ago or something along those lines still sticks and resonates with me, is like, we don't know what these drills are being used for. Like, obviously, you want to see everybody be successful, have the stats, everybody's perfect from the field and getting all the interceptions and sacks and catches and touchdowns and whatnot. But genuinely, these players are working on things. And I'm not trying to excuse bad play or anything like that. But, sometimes it truly is, hey, let's try to work on something. Can you get away? And that's what players are trying to figure out during training camp. And honestly, during the preseason too, it's a little different in the preseason. It's not really as much there. In a way it is. But they're figuring out what they can get away with, right? They're trying to experiment and say, hey, can I do this in a real game and actually have this be somewhat successful or very successful? Well, if you try it out in a real game and you have no idea if it's going to work or not, I mean, let me tell you, it might be in a little bit of trouble if, it's not going to work and you haven't tested that out. So to me, that's why I don't want to overreact to anything, whether it's great performances, bad performances. Like, I want to stay as level-headed as I can, and there'll always be some fluctuation, right? I think there always is. Certain things mean more than other things, but at the end of the day, it feels like the Ravens truly do have a lot of guys. I mean, you look at the roster, it's right there in front of you. You have a lot of guys that can contribute for you week in and week out, and that honestly is one of the great makings of a great team. You don't have to rely on one or two guys at each position to make plays for you in order to win a football game. Obviously, QB is the lone exception, and I guess kicker is that as well. But, you have guys that can rotate in and out in the event of an injury, in the event of somebody going down. You truly have 3, 4 pieces behind those guys, sometimes 2, but still, you have more than one piece behind really every position outside of quarterback. That's different, but they can make an impact and really hold on to the reins before that guy can get back. And then you can just pass it off and say, hey, here are these back. And the ship is still steering in the right direction. So it's a testament to how Eric DaCosta and company in that front office has built this team up. And I truly, like I say all the time, I cannot wait for this season. Coming up, though, we will talk about the tempers flaring at training camp, as well as some injury concerns possibly for this Ravens team. Are there any, or are these just little minor camp things? So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football's back. Fire up the group chat. Get your draft board ready and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and I love how smooth the draft day experience is. You have all the player analysis you need. It's really in-depth. You have the draft boards. Yahoo Fantasy really does have it all. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins on August 4th. Stay tuned to get started by creating or joining Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you on the show here on this Tuesday edition. Appreciate everybody again for being here. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button in video form and audio form for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. We've built up so many great, awesome communities on Locked On Ravens. We got social media, obviously Twitter, Instagram. I'm trying to do TikTok now. I'm working my way up on that, but it's all at ChaosStriker34. You can follow me on there. And of course, we also have the video community here, the audio community, subtext community, so many communities, and we're continuing to grow each and every single day. So even if you have a friend or a family member who likes the Ravens, likes daily Ravens coverage, is a diehard fan, is a new fan, is a casual fan, we have coverage for them as well as for you on Locked On Ravens. But let's get into the tempers flaring at training camp on Monday. You had a scuffle between Odafe Oweh and Carson Vincent. The two of them got into it, and apparently it didn't last super long, but there was apparently a big pile and this, that, and the other. That's going to happen, I think. It's heat. You've been going up against these guys for about a week. Well, I guess a little less than a week now. I honestly think guys are somewhat tired of it already. You're back in the swing of things. Training camp just started up a little less than a week ago. But, at the end of the day, I think that for these guys, Carson Vincent obviously is trying to fight for a role or a roster spot, and Odafe Oweh is trying to prove himself after a solid but inconsistent season. Apparently, Vincent's helmet was knocked off in the scuffle. The intensity was there. The competition was up a notch with the pads coming on, and Oweh was actually pulled away towards the defensive sideline by teammates and coaches. So again, it's like things like that happen in training camp. It's, not this big deal of, the Ravens, they have drama because of, no, it's not that. It literally is just, it's hot outside. Guys are competitive, they're not going to take anything. They are going to want to put their best foot forward. They want to make the best impact that they can. And if anybody is standing in their way, their competition, they're going to make it known if they don't like something. So, there wasn't a huge The Ravens got into this like 15-minute fight. There wasn't any footage of it or anything along those lines, but temper certainly did flare, and I'm just going to probably give a little spoiler right here. Probably won't be the last time that this happens, especially because the Ravens have 2 joint practices, one against the Colts and one against the Commanders. I'm pretty sure there might be something that happens. I mean, look, the Ravens and the Commanders joint practice a couple of years ago, there was a massive all-out brawl. So, things like that absolutely do happen. But let's get into some of the injury updates. John Harbaugh gave those. Jaire Alexander, as I mentioned at the top of the show, he did not practice. John Harbaugh made it pretty clear that he should return to practice today. So hopefully he's back out there. If you're listening or watching this after practice on Tuesday, then you know if he did or not. But Harbaugh said that Jaire needed his knee drained after some swelling. And I know that sounds kind of like, whoa, that's a little bit weird that it's happening this early. I think it's more so load management, precautionary stuff. Like, you don't want to mess with any of that. You just get the swelling down. It's something that it happens. It happens. Now, we know that with Jaire's injury history and, how things ended in Green Bay, I guess it's a little concerning when he misses training camp for the first time just less than a week after it starts. But if it balloons into something else, we'll have a different conversation. But for now, I'm just going to hope he's back at practice today. So you will see how that unfolds. Other injury updates were mostly encouraging. Rashod Bateman was sent home with an illness. He was not happy about it, but, the Ravens don't want him to get everybody sick. So that is in the best interest of everybody. Nothing to really see there. Bilal Kone is dealing with a shoulder injury. He got banged up during, I believe it was Saturday's practice, but John Harbaugh said that's believed to be minor. Honestly, the quote-unquote worst injury update of the day was Jalen Lamar, who left practice. He had to have an MRI, or he will have an MRI. I don't know if it was for this morning or yesterday, but it was undisclosed. It's not believed to be serious, but it seemed like based off of tone, Harbaugh felt the least amount of sure about Jalen Lamar out of all of them. And, if it turns out to be something with Jalen Lamar, it is disappointing. It kind of has been the story of his career, and it's a tough situation for Jalen Lamar, right? Because he's fighting for a spot. He's trying to figure things out. And, at the end of the day, the best option you can be for your team is available. The best quality you can be is available. Like, it's availability. That's the best thing you can have. And Jalen Lamar just has not had it. And hopefully he's able to come back on the field quickly. But, you hear about guys like Ruben Lowry, and I talked about this on the squad show. If a guy like Ruben Lowry, who's an undrafted free agent, comes in, makes an impact, and really makes a name for himself, and Jalen Lamar can't come back until, I don't know, just mid-August or something, a spot might already be lost. There's a lot of talent in that secondary, a lot of tough decisions, and, it'd be unfortunate if that is how Jalen Lamar would lose his roster spot. So, we'll see how that unfolds. Hopefully, the Ravens can stay as healthy as possible during training camp. We're already seeing some injuries happen throughout the league. Luckily, the Ravens have not had anything serious happen. Injuries happen in football. You just hope to contain it as best as you can. The Ravens have had 2 pretty good injury seasons the last 2 years, and knock on wood there, that continues. So, again, it's just a lot of excitement in the air right now, a lot of football. And I think for the Ravens moving forward as we get into these next couple days of padded practices, I think it's a really good opportunity for the rookies. We've heard a lot about the rookies, right? And Peebles has made a name for himself. Malaki Starks had a really nice day on Friday. We obviously talked about Mike Green a lot today. Like, the class itself, while I don't expect like 10 of those 11 picks to be contributors year one, I think if you can get healthy contributions, like elite level from Starks and Green, and then maybe like another 2 players give you good contributions. Like, maybe that's Teddy Buchanan, maybe it is Peebles. You're probably pretty happy with that. Plus, you have the vets coming in. And I think that everybody just, it's load management. It's staying as healthy as possible until January and February, hopefully football. The Ravens are in a good spot right now. And, they're not a perfect team. They have to play the games. Crazy things happen in sports. But out of, the Ravens rosters in the Lamar Jackson era, I do think this is the best one that Lamar Jackson has ever had. And I'm excited. That's the word of the day. It's the word of the day, apparently. It's just excited. And we'll see how training camp continues to roll for these guys. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thanks so much for tuning in to the show. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow talking more training camp updates, talking more Ravens football. So on the way out, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along and subscribe in audio form, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.